There is now a consensus from the media, governments, and industry across the globe that we all need to play a part in caring for the environment and making goals of greater sustainability, such as tackling the climate change crises and reducing pollution a priority before the harmful effects of these issues becomes irreversible. A key factor in this move towards greater sustainability are the organisations involved in the professional cleanup of toxic spills and hazardous chemicals. The relationship between effective spill response and the drive to a more sustainable world is intrinsically linked. Pollution incidents can cause significant harm to the environment, drinking water supplies, and public health. Certain toxic substances can take years to disappear, and some dangerous pollutants even have the potential to last indefinitely, what is termed by experts as forever chemicals. From a sustainability point of view, chemical pollution can seriously damage the delicate balance of the Earth's ecosystems, meaning that effective spill response is of vital importance. Over the next half hour, Executive TV will look at how the UK Spill Association and how its members play their part in this growing environmental focus.
One of the things we're seeing a lot of at the moment is we're seeing infrastructure being damaged partly due to climate change. I'll give you an example of this. If you think that the sea is rising and you've got a lot of infrastructure around our coastline was built decades ago, but the sea walls around them haven't really risen either. So one thing we're seeing is that when you get big storm surges caused by climate change, you're seeing sea level rise, you're seeing damage to that shoreline infrastructure. You only have to look around our coastline, particularly on the east of England and parts down the southeast of England. The coastal erosion that is occurring is significant, and it could be meters and meters per year. And you're seeing, what used to be a fuel installation or a refinery or a fuel storage area, which was perhaps a mile from the coast, now only has sort of 100 meters of coastline left because there's been coastal erosion. And when you get severe storms, those pieces of infrastructure are being threatened. You see it around ports where there is, again, sea level rise, you're getting increasingly extremes of weather, and you get storms which are damaging infrastructure. This was seen most significantly in the last hurricane season on the west coast and south coast of the United States, where there were severe weather conditions combined with sea level rise, which damaged a lot of infrastructure. So climate change is posing a risk to that, which is posing a real problem of how do you avoid it. And so they are looking at imaginative ways whereby perhaps some of that infrastructure is moved where you might put ships offshore, and they might go and tie up to big infrastructure which is stored offshore, and they will then offload or load from offshore and not inside a port, so you can protect the port. Things like that. So there's lots of challenges going on which are caused by climate change, particularly to infrastructure.
So prevention of spills is a very big part of our business. And it's something that we're quite passionate about. We want to go out there, and we actually would rather prevent a spill incident from occurring. So as a business, we can come and audit sites, provide advice and guidance on best practice, and even undertake some training for the people on site to manage small pollution incidents themselves quickly and effectively.
A key issue when considering environmental responsibility is climate change. This term refers to the long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns caused by excessive carbon in the atmosphere from the burning of fossil fuels for energy. Industries across the board are now under pressure to reduce their carbon footprint and adopt more sustainable working practices. However, there are also other factors, such as the prediction of a coming recession, that companies must balance against these concerns to remain competitive and stay in business.
The narrative that's being played out at the minute is we're going into recession. I'm quite the opposite in my view of where we're going. We've been planning very clearly for a growth 5 years. And according to the data that we currently have within our sales team and within our information gathering that we've done in our marketing, we are looking at a very significant growth in the year 2023. We're certainly looking at least a 50 to 60% growth, which is going to be one of our really big years. And a number of those jobs are in. So when I hear the narrative that's being played out, I don't agree with it. And I think we as a company don't agree with it. We see a very positive future. However, we do have to pick up the pieces of the people who are very impacted by what media tells them. That's not what I see in the world as we work forward. I see a roaring 20s coming. And I've always chatted that after the last great pandemic in 1920, when we had the flu pandemic, the roaring 20s came after it, where there was great innovation, there was a thriving, there was a real growth in the economy. Now, I know at the minute, many people see that there's dangers ahead. This is due to a small localized war in Europe, which I think will come to an end in the next 3 to 4 months. I do think the winter will quieten everything down, and I'm really looking forward to seeing things getting back to normal, starting to push forward, seeing the fuel prices come back down for individuals. And I'm pleased the government are doing the work they are on keeping the energy caps on, because that helps to keep inflation down. The only thing that I do worry about is the fact that bank interest rates are going up. But our bank has been super supportive. We've had some great meetings with them, and they're very much behind us as we move into this future that we see, with all the numbers that we have put together, with the entire business plan that's sitting there. And I don't see this recession that these people are talking about.
I think there's a lot of new technology that will be of great benefit to our industry. And there's lots of things like remote sensing equipment. So one of our sister companies uses a helicopter-mounted LiDAR system that will allow them to survey large areas in a very short space of time. Anything that reduces personnel attending site, so the driving to and from site, is probably our biggest contribution to our carbon footprint. So remote sensing, remote working, we're in the process of developing an app that we can distribute to our customers, where they can undertake an initial survey on our behalf using their own equipment that they may have in their pocket. And that just allows us to go better prepared for our first site visit and make the work shorter, more effective, and overall cheaper for our clients.
As an environmental company, we care about the planet we will leave to future generations and continue to offer the most sustainable solutions possible to our partners and their customers. In all our operations, we have adopted the principle of sustainability by design, looking at how we can redesign the way we work to be more sustainable. To assist in our aim to be carbon neutral by 2030, we have committed to Science Based Targets initiative, which is helping to bring about the change needed in the markets in which we operate.
At MEL, we believe sustainability is very important when undertaking our works. We've recently signed up to the Science Based Targets initiative in order to identify and control our greenhouse gas emissions. We've signed up to reach net zero by 2030, as have a lot of our clients. Whenever possible, we look to undertake our works in a sustainable manner. Not only is it cost efficient, it's also good for the environment and will ultimately reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
As an environmental company, we care deeply about the planet we leave to the future, continually strive to offer the most sustainable solutions possible to our partners and their customers. In all our operations, we have adopted the principle of sustainability by design. MEL have been managing environmental liabilities on behalf of our petrochem, industrial, development and insurance clients since 1995. We've been providing them with sustainable solutions to their environmental problems. With a track record exceeding 27 years, we've been at the forefront in the development, commercialization and implementation of innovative, sustainable technology solutions for all types of soil and groundwater contamination problems, and have unrivaled experience in delivering remediation projects of all sizes and complexities.
With the growing concerns for mankind's impact on our planet, many companies are actively involved in work that benefits a more sustainable future. A good example is sustainable remediation, which refers to the investigation, assessment, and management of contaminated land and groundwater.
Well, there's a whole part of our industry which is geared towards sustainable remediation. I was involved 20 years ago in something called SURF UK, which is the Sustainable Remediation Forum, where professionals, consultants and contractors, landowners got together to try and decide what was sustainable remediation. And essentially what sustainable remediation is the use of reasonable resources, the careful and proportionate use of resources in order to clean up a piece of land. In other words, don't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. If you've got a few teaspoons of oil in the soil and you spend thousands of litres of diesel in plant and machinery digging it up and taking it to a landfill site, it's completely unsustainable. So the other end of the spectrum is what we do at ATG. We use an awful lot of innovative technology, which allows us to keep materials on site. In the last 2 years, we have successfully diverted somewhere in the region of 1.3 million tonnes of material, soils, that would otherwise have gone to landfill. And that has a carbon footprint of hundreds of thousands of tonnes of CO2. Much of what we do is geared around that. But there's another element to sustainability as well, which is the work that we do with the regulators. I can think of a case study of a project we did up in Sunderland at the Pallian Quarry, whereby if we'd done exactly what they asked for in the first place, we would have done probably 5 or 10 times more remediation than we needed to do. So it's about coming up with a pragmatic solution that's just enough, not too much, not too little, but the right amount to remove the environmental risk. That's what sustainability really means. The final piece of that answer to the question is in relation to some work we're doing at the moment around reprocessing materials. There's something called incinerator bottom ash, which is it's a lovely story actually, because it's a waste material that comes out of energy from waste plants. So we get the rubbish from our households that goes into energy from waste plants, gets burnt to produce electricity, which is green, sustainable energy. But then the waste that comes out of the bottom of it, incinerator bottom ash, is like a clinker ash, can then be taken. We can recover the metals from that ash and produce a renewable resource in terms of ferrous and non-ferrous metals, and have a recyclable aggregate material at the end, which is the incinerator bottom ash aggregate. That material can then be used as a substitute for virgin aggregate in things like road sub-bases and infills on projects and material bases. It's a very good alternative that saves an awful lot of carbon dioxide, and it's part of the circular economy because you're taking a waste, recycling it and reusing it.
It is not just industry that is considering environmental responsibility. Governments are increasingly under pressure too, with many voicing the opinion that governments across the world should lead the way, particularly with need to work towards a net zero carbon emissions target by 2050 in the UK.
Carbon in the atmosphere is a real problem. We've seen that. We've seen various attempts at various COPs, COP this, COP that, to try to reduce the amount of carbon in our atmosphere. But there's no doubt about it, there's too much carbon in our atmosphere. And we need to reduce it. We need to reduce it fast if we're going to keep to 1.5, which looks like it's already going to be a struggle to achieve that. And let's hope the meeting in Montreal on biodiversity, which is going on at the moment, comes up with great solutions there. I think there's an enthusiasm to change. The problem for government is there's been a lot of changes in government, and there are lots and lots of different departments who have a great intent, but actually you get too many changes of minister, so you don't see their initial goals come through to conclusion. An example might be that we have a Secretary of State for Defence who's been in place a long time. He's driven through huge change in the defence environment, in the defence department, such that we've got really good things going on in the defence department. But it's because he's been there a long time. He's had a firm hand on the tiller of the direction that department will take. If you look at some other departments, you haven't had ministers in there long enough to make the changes which perhaps they could. And I think we need to see ministers stay in post for much longer so they can see these good initiatives through. which we're not seeing at the moment. Other things are going on which are going to reduce the amount of carbon that is going. If you think about what has happened to fuel, the fuel that we consume, more and more of it is from sustainable, is less polluting. So you're seeing in every litre of diesel, 7% of it is of a sustainably produced product, which is less emitting. So we've reduced our emissions in every litre of diesel by 7% over the last 20 years. That's good, and those trends will continue. Personally, I think we need to go further, and we need to have more radical steps to remove the amount of carbon which we emit as a nation into the atmosphere. And that will only come by increasing our spend on renewables and reducing the amount of fossil fuels that we burn.
Research and development and new ideas can help with environmental concerns, both for not only governments, but also businesses, who must balance the need for change with staying in operation. Innovation is a proven method for tackling environmental issues and also drives business forward.
The biggest challenge around sustainability in our industry is a cost issue. Sustainability doesn't always come cheap, although it's not always the most expensive either, but it's not usually the cheapest. So there's a continual battle with clients and education to explain why there is a benefit over one particular remediation strategy over another. So that's what we're doing, is that the education of people within our industry.
So the reason why our work is vital to the environment and sustainability is, as a company, we have taken it on ourselves to spend about 1.6 million in R&D. In fact, this year that will continue to increase, and there's a further 400,000 being spent. And this is all around, how do we deal with emerging contaminants? How do we deal with the challenge of reusing materials, and looking at how the government have structured the laws to keep material away from landfill. So what we have managed to achieve is diversion each year of more than 250,000 tonnes of material from landfill. When we do the CO2 calculations on that, it comes up around 1.3 million tonnes of CO2 saved, based on the road transport and the fuel that would be used to transport that material to dumping sites. But also, when we dump the material, it also degrades and uses up CO2 as the biological degradation of the waste occurs. So we're looking at more sustainable approaches, dealing with the contaminants at source, stabilise them in such a way that they are non-reactive and they are locked in. So the contaminants are no threat to the environment and no threat to humans. They're no threat to the rivers, they're no threat to the groundwater. And then we re-engineer the materials to make it reusable within the particular sites that we're working at. The prime examples are, we recently did a lot of work at Windsor Park, where on our football pitch, we did some major work in Sunderland on the Weir Crossing, and we did some another lovely project up at Highland Springs around the sustainable delivery of a platform for loading of water to take lorries off the road. And those have been extremely successful projects and have been really a springboard for the company going forward. I love Highland Springs and a springboard, guys, you know. I do my best to play with words for you, but the springboard is going to be something that we absolutely see as it's like a watershed moment for the company, where we now have really grown up. We've got our Queen's Award under our belt. We've got a major project for a big water user. And we've seen a sustainable development done using a very innovative technology that everybody said wouldn't work.
I think the only way that we can have success is to set plans for the long term and then tend to stick to them. There is a lot of short-term changes which go on, which I think really upsets the long-term, which disrupts the long-term vision and the likelihood of achieving those long-term goals. Reducing carbon out of the atmosphere isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take many, many years to achieve it. And if you keep chopping and changing, people get confused. And we just need to invest in protecting our environment.
New technologies focused on solving ecological issues are being made a priority by many in industry. Many industry leaders are recognising the benefits of innovation and are investing considerable money and resources into it. Another way of facing the challenge of moving towards greater sustainability is education. Many business leaders are providing education on ecological issues for their clients in order to help them to understand the options available and how they can benefit
I think innovation
the
is
environment.
key in tackling a lot of our environmental issues. We don't know everything in this industry, so we're constantly looking at other industries and new developments across the world for anything that gives us the edge to improve the offering of our services and to improve the quality of the service that's delivered and the end goal. So anything that is more efficient, more effective, or more cost effective is always taken on board, considered, even if it's not designed for what we're looking to use it for. We then look at bench scale trials, lab-based trials, and then field trials, and slowly introduce it and to become a normal thing within our industry.
I think there's a lot of innovation going on in spill response at the moment. And one thing that we are seeing is we're seeing far more efficient ways of recovering liquids which go into water. There's some really clever work which is being done there. We're seeing new equipment coming in which is much cleaner, which uses less fuel. It's more efficient in operation. We're seeing lots of things like that which are improvements. We're also seeing new products coming in which absorb more than the products which they replace. So I think we are seeing lots of innovation, and I think innovation is something which we all need to invest in innovation.
A key area when considering greater environmental sustainability is the effective and safe cleanup of dangerous toxic spills. One of the most common is oil spills. A potential drawback with new sustainable technologies is that in the case of accidental spills, they can bring new issues and challenging for cleanup teams.
Sustainability is really important to all our members, and it's one of the themes that we'll be working on, I'm sure, for many, many years, and we've already started the work already. Treading less heavily on the world is really essential to protecting the world that we have around us and to handing to our children a better environment than we have now. So there are many challenges. We've also got to, whilst we can adopt it, we need our clients to adopt it too. And sometimes there's a process of education. So the way we approach it is to try to give our clients sustainable solutions to the instance which we're attending. Now, there may be drivers within their own business, which mean that, if it's particularly valuable infrastructure, the most important thing is speed to get that piece of infrastructure back into operation as quickly as possible. So whatever the route, you've just got to get it done quickly. But what we try to do is perhaps present with to our clients the most sustainable solution, the most cost-effective solution, but also the quickest solution. So they then choose which one that they would want to adopt. Now, you may find that if the infrastructure which may have failed is not particularly critical to their operation, that many will choose the most sustainable operation because that is good for the environment and it's good for the way that they approach their business and their own achievement of environmental and sustainability goals.
Our work is vital to the environment and sustainability because we've only got one environment. All of our teams are passionate about leaving the world in a better place than when we first found it. And without the environment, our society and our life going forward is not going to survive.
When we're dealing with oil spills, one of the issues we have is the exposure of our staff and also to the general public of the gases or vapours that are given off by the oil. These can be harmful in the short term and the long term to human health. We use an instrument called a photoionisation detector in order to measure in real time what the concentrations of these vapours are in the atmospheres we are breathing, or indeed may be present in the buildings which we attend. The fact that we're able to measure in real time allows us to either arrange for our staff to wear PPE to enter the building in the first place. It also allows us to determine whether or not we need to put in place venting systems. In addition, if we can prove that we have removed the vapours by using the VOC and having a series of zero readings, this will give us a good indication that we have reached the end of our remediation process.
Yeah, on the new technology side, we've decided to develop biofuels. The problem with biofuels is they mix with water, most of them. By making sure that oil now mixes with water, we create a new contamination zone, which means instead of us being able to recover it from the floating zone, we're having to look now within the dissolved phase of the water. So these contaminants are ending up in the water, moving faster, and therefore increase the size and spread of impact of an oil spill. So as we add these bioproducts in, we cause more problems. The other thing is the microplastics are becoming fairly big, and we're trying to solve problems with microplastics. We don't have a solution yet, but it's one we're looking at.
A key area when considering greater environmental sustainability is the effective and safe cleanup of dangerous toxic spills. One of the most common is oil spills. A potential drawback with new sustainable technologies is that in the case of accidental spills, they can bring in new issues and challenges for the cleanup teams. Overall, from the discussions in the programme, it can be clearly seen that effective spill response is a vital part of the current work towards a more sustainable future. There never has been a more important time to ensure that harmful substances are taken care of quickly and efficiently, to minimise danger to both human health and limit the impact on the environment. In conclusion, although the move towards greater sustainability can have challenges, many companies and pioneering business leaders are now actively focused on innovations and new ways of doing things in order to build a better environment for future generations.